All right, guys, welcome back. So first off, peep the new shirt. I have a video. I'll put the clip in. But this is the test batch, my personal shirt. Just gonna run it through the wash, make sure everything comes out good. But this is all screen printed, so super reliable. It's a super comfortable shirt. This is me, 176 pounds with a large, so give you size idea. Anyways, so today what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about the ECUs. That's what we're gonna talk about. So myself included, it's popped up quite a bit, especially in the K series. People asking which ECU to use, what benefits, what's cost effective, all that stuff. And actually I was just introduced to another option the other day, which I hadn't really thought about, because to me it was a DSM option for a long time, and I just never looked into it, and clearly I'm behind a little bit. So let's get into it. All right, so first off, let's shout out to YouTube for having YouTube safe music we can run in the background while we do this. All right, so here's where we're at. These are going to be our options. We are looking at K-Pro, fueltech FT450, a haltech 750, and the Link HX20. I was gonna do the K-tuner, but I just don't feel like it compares very well with these ones, so I stuck to these four. So I will be going back and forth between this screen and the website specific bring ups. Actually, I need to get back into the one for this one because I forgot. So let's jump into that real quick. You guys can see, I'm not, I'm pulling all the information straight from the website. Excuse me. Some of these have better options than other ones. It really just depends on what you're looking to do. I think that was the wrong one. Hold on. ECU guide. That's the one I need. So you can see that's 1250 for the 750, or 1205. Excuse me, not 1250. 1205 without a harness. I guess we're here, so we'll start on the haltech. All the websites essentially, at least the three major standalones, all share a site like this where you can come in and select so the 750, the 1500, the 2500, the Nexus R3, and the Nexus R5. You can go through and see individual information. But again, for this, we're just looking at the 750 column, which is this first one here. So, your inputs, outputs, this is how much data you can run through the system. So this is saying that you have dedicated three inputs, and then you have definable 7 inputs. So essentially that's 10, but the dedicated 3, you can't do anything with those 3 other than what they're dedicated for. Outputs, so you have 6 for injectors, 6 for ignition, and then 5 that you get to tell what it does. Can't do electric throttle body. It'll run flex fuel. It does have closed loop. This is a dual closed loop, which is kind of cool. I want to say the Link also has a dual, which is pretty dope. No knock sensors, single variable time, long-term learning. You can just run through all this stuff. So, come down here. So that's your race features. Nitrous control, boost control, CO2. It says it doesn't do CO2, but boost control is CO2. It just matters on how you control it. I'm assuming that's for parachute, shifter, and all that stuff. It's got basic flat foot shifting, and then all of this is no. So no traction control, none of that stuff. And then let's jump over to what was my favorite, and I'm gonna be very clear on that word, was. All right, so we're at fueltech. So this is, again, we're gonna be talking about the 450. We're gonna try and stay in the same type of price range. This ECU is $1,000. Oh, there we go. Forget that this one's touchscreen. This ECU is $1,000, $999 or whatever, $995, some shit like that. But so it'll control up to 8 cylinders, 2 rotors. It has a dash unit, which is a nice benefit to the fueltech. Has a built-in screen, but outside of that, it really when you see some of the features that the other one has that this doesn't, it's kind of crazy. So again, we'll go through here. Launch control, 2-step, boost control. This doesn't have a gear control function, so like it won't shift for you. You'd have to go over one of the higher units. This touchscreen display is for the 550 Lite, which doesn't have a digital dash. It's just an ECU unit, which if you're just trying to do, you know, a budget option, it's cool. This is kind of dope. Fueltech is the only one that offers in this class electronic wastegate control, which is awesome. That's because Fueltech worked with the company to design it. That's why it's built in. You know, you can do expandable input outputs with this, but again, that's more money that you gotta spend. So here we have 9 inputs, 7 of them are configurable. CAN bus station, 10 outputs, excuse me. Up to 10 outputs for injection and 5 outputs for ignition. That's because you do wasted spark and you can do the 10. And then you have 10 auxiliary outputs. Those are your programmable ones. So pretty decent amount of time of data logging. Then we get into a bunch of red stuff, which I'm not super worried about in this aspect. For what I would need anyways, what most people need, none of that matters. This here is pretty crazy to me. Like, this one doesn't offer a gyroscope. One of the other options does. And that's pretty cool because you can actually like set parameters. Like if the car gets sideways, you can program it to deploy the parachute if you have CO2 control on the parachute. So I guess with this one, because it doesn't have CO2 control like that and stuff, that was the haltech. But yeah, that's like the kind of stuff there. So again, that's that. Now let's jump over to what has become my preference of the 3, which is the Link ECU. So now you saw the other 2 pages. Haltech's got like 1.5 pages of information here. Fueltech, again, a solid, 1.5 pages of information there. Check out this 8 pages. Like, I'm not even gonna go through anything yet. Just look at all of the breakdown. This is nuts. That's page 4, page 5, page 6, 7, and 8's a small page, but still. So seven full pages of data and documentation and description and everything else, compared to a page and a half on the other 2. So 6 or 8, that's depending upon ECU configuration. But the good thing for that, so for us K-Series people, you're gonna use probably 4 coil, well, definitely 4 coils, and then you'll use, 4 injectors, unless you run 8 injectors. But if you run 4 injectors, the other 2 or 4 that you don't use become usable outputs, whichever, outputs. I'll show you that in a later thing. So those become usable, so it gives you additional inputs and outputs after. 11 digital inputs. It'll run 5 volt out, so like signal is kind of cool. Temperature sensors are in there. Trigger wheels, so like if you gotta run like an aftermarket trigger wheel or something, like a rotary guy. Accelerometer, barometer, so like all of us that have that app to tell us what the air density and everything is, it's built into the ECU. So this is their fuel adjustment table information, which is pretty straightforward. Ignition adjustments. Granted, all of this is like pretty straightforward, but like the fact that they lay all of this out is awesome. At least to me, I'm a nerd. All of your limits that you can set. These are your auxiliary output information. So yeah, unfuel unused ignition and fuel outputs available as auxiliary outputs. So like if you only use 4 and 4, that gives you either 2, depending on your ECU configuration, that gives you 2 additional, or it would be 4 additional or 8 additional outputs, which is kind of cool. There's a bunch of general stuff, fuel pumps, all the basic stuff. They have some body control stuff like that. Pretty straightforward. Yeah, all of this is configurable with resistors built in. So all that, like, super on top of stuff. Because anti-theft, like, you can run body controls through this. Barometer. You can run general temp, like regular sensors, all the normal stuff that we run. Triggering, so again, aftermarket trigger wheels, all that stuff, but it also supports all the OEM options, which is the K series, which uses a cam and crank signal. Programmable math processing. That's something that I want to see some more about. That's pretty cool. So Motorsports features anti-lag launch control, traction control, all built in. Anti-lag, which is 2-step. You have a 3D table. That's pretty dope. Launch control. Ton of information. Digital or gear shift control. So like, if you have a DCT or whatever, this will control the DCT. Traction control. Super dope. Standard idle control. If you want to run on electronic throttle body, you have that option as well. Boost control is a few different options for boost control, which is nice. Knock sensors, I don't use those. Variable valve timing, again, chassis controls. Logging information, it's 512 megabytes of data logging. Bunch of channels and all that fun stuff. You can do unlimited channels if you use PCM link or PC Link. So if you're doing it through your laptop, essentially. Communication, 2 CAN bus systems. So if you run a dash, you can run the dash and the laptop without interfering with anything because it has 2 CAN systems. There's your processing data, and then, like I said, the rest of that's just pretty much basic information. So this one is like 1200 to 1450-ish, depending on what options you go with. Let's jump over to this here. So, you know, we can just do the quick overview of all the stuff we just looked at now. So, the K-Pro, obviously I didn't pull K-Pro up, because K-Pro is basically just a stock computer that's been piggybacked. So, it uses 4 cylinders. It's not going to run rotaries, because obviously it's not designed for that. Doesn't have a dash unit. Does closed loop. Doesn't specify the injection stages. I know it has a VE fuel model because I've used K-Manager before. OEM controls. Doesn't do an electronic throttle body. Has launch control. Has 2-step boost control. Boost by gear. No traction control. Won't do automatic trans. Won't do electric wastegate. No expansions. So your ins and outs are just what's available, and that's not listed anywhere. And then standard input outputs for injectors, which is 4 and 4. It says it's got about 3 hours and 35 minutes of data logging, which is kind of nice, but that's like the only, place where that actually trumps any of the other ones. So you get down here and you look at price, $795 plus an OEM ECU. To buy an OEM K series ECU for this, which is a PRB out of an RSX Type S, it's like $300 for just the computer. So you're looking at $1,100, and you're still running a 15-year-old computer with a piggyback on it. Is it plug and play? Yes. Is that a huge benefit because you don't have to change like a harness and stuff? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, like you can see how many no's and OEM options there are compared to the other options for similar prices. So, you know, if we round this up to where it's actually going to be, if we put this at 1,100, and again, I'm not including, I hit something. I'm not including extra sensors and things like that, like if you're trying to run an aftermarket wideband or anything like that, none of that's included because you're gonna have to do that for any of these regardless. Like fueltech has the nano, haltech has one that they like to use, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna have your options. But that's all additional to this anyways. So like, yeah, this looks cool, but like it's $1,100. Yeah, you use your stock harness, but you're using 15-year-old wiring that's been pulled on and tugged and heated and cooled, and you know, that's kind of an iffy option. You're probably gonna wanna upgrade that harness regardless, and you're still looking at $400 to get a stock style harness to put in the car. So fueltech, again, we went through all this information. You know, we break down here, it's $1,000. The harness, if you do a custom harness, you're looking at $500 to $800. To make it plug and play, there's sub harnesses. Delacruz Motorsports sells one, and I think it's like $600 or $800, something like that. So you're at, you know, $1,600 to make it plug and play, to have a much better ECU that's fully programmable. You can get data out of it, and it has a digital dash. So, you know, if you're trying to be fancy, the digital dash option is super dope. So then next to that, we have the 750. The 750 will only do a 6-cylinder at most, but it'll do a 3-rotor, which is kind of cool. And then, like, this is one thing I didn't like. It says it uses inputs for idle control. So you're losing inputs in order to have IAC, and that's dumb, because I don't want to lose any inputs. Like, you already don't have a ton of inputs. So if we look here at the input screen, it's 7, 7, and 11, and then it's 10, 5, and 8. But again, this one, any of the ones you don't use for outputs become additional outputs, so that 8 can very quickly become 12 to 16. So that's not as discouraging as it could be, but this actually does have the lowest two numbers for inputs and outputs available for tuning. The fueltech has 5 injector outputs. The haltech has 6. This is 6 to 8. Again, the 6 to 8 is dependent upon your ECU configuration, but again, if you only use 4, those extras become additional outputs. Ignition, again, same thing. The current is going to just be based off OEM, 5 amp. I'm going to go with these are probably both going to be about 5 amp, which is normal. These are just the data that they had listed. I wasn't able to get the data log speed. I was hoping that more of these columns would match up, but it is what it is. Again, none of these, like K-Pro doesn't have all this data listed out because it's a piggyback system, so you can't just go find it. The haltech, you can either build a harness for additional money. Remember, this is $1,205, so you're starting at $1,200. Then an additional harness, their 4-cylinder harness is like $500 or whatever, and then you have to obviously make it match your car. Or you can do the sub harness, which was like $4 something, and it makes it plug and play to a stock harness or an aftermarket OEM style harness. The link is designed to go inside a factory Honda PCM case, but it's not a piggyback. It is its own unit, it's its own system, and then you just put it inside the hardware. So, you know, you could be at the same $1,200 as the haltech. It's a little bit more than this, but this one will plug right into your factory dash or your factory harness. You can go through and do quite a bit of stuff. Like I said, this is my new favorite. Like, look at all the, so what do we have a no on? We have no on the dash unit, which is fine. Won't want a rotary. It may, but this is specifically this link has an option that will run the rotary, but this is the plug and play option, so it's not going to do it, just for that reason. But then as you go down, like, everything's yes. It didn't say anything about automatic transmission control, so I wrote it as NA. IO expansion, so I think they have an additional expansion pack, but any of the unused ignition or injector outputs become additional outputs. So you've already got 11 inputs, and then you could have again 12 to 16 outputs. That's huge. 2 CAN bus systems is huge. Like the other two don't have that, and these are the other 2 expensive options. All of this looks super dope. So again, this one is like the stock car that someone put a couple of mods on and they wanted to do some stuff to it. This is pretty basic, which is why I didn't end up actually doing it. It's significantly cheaper, but that's why it doesn't really compare to these ones. You know what I mean? So that's my thought. Like I said, I would, if you're looking for a new ECU for your K-Series powered project, let's see, I'll back out of this so you guys can see what the website looks like. So you can see, like, that's what the ECU looks like. It literally just goes right into a K-Series PCM box, the hard case. Designed for K20A. Oh, look at that. It says works for manual transmissions over. So this has an onboard 7-bar map sensor. So you don't have to go buy a special map sensor. That's a feature I didn't actually look at. I know the fueltech has a 5-bar, I want to say. Let's see. So this doesn't do VE. Let's see. Should say somewhere in here. No? All right, let's go. I'll open this more than once. All right. Products. ECUs. So yeah, you can see the price, FT450, $1,000. And again, that's without the harness. If you add their 10 foot unterminated harness, it's an additional $100. But then you have to pay someone to come wire it for you. Integrated boost control. Somewhere. So it has, you can see that that's the map sensor. This is also 7-bar. Okay, so they both have 7 bars built into the computers, which is cool. So the 4-pin CAN connector, that's that there, I believe, which is just how you read everything outside of this. So you can connect for OBD2 and whatnot. Staged injection. So I think that means you can run like one set, then another set. I'm gonna download the manual when we're done. This is your IO harness, from what I understand. So like you purchase that and it plugs into one of the extra plugs there, and that's how you do your ins and outs. And it's like $45. Show you that. Accessories. They do have dashes if you want to switch to a dash unit as well. They have all the same stuff. This is all like, let's look at the keypads real quick. Let's go with the 8-button keypad. Looks just like a fueltech one. Downside to the Link is you have to go to a dealer. Like, this isn't going to show you any of the prices. You have to Google all the prices because they don't sell direct to individuals. Everything goes through a dealer. Let's go with this one because it's a GX. So, expansion, I think. I'm still learning like this website, so My bad. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty much, I mean, those plugs look just like fueltech plugs too. Yeah, so what I'm gonna say is, for me personally, the Link is definitely seeming like a solid option. I'm gonna talk to the tuner and see what his thoughts on the Link is and make sure he's comfortable with it. Because if I can do that option and have G-meter, barometer, accelerometer, all that stuff built into the ECU, it's a lot more data that I don't have to buy additional parts for or lose additional ins and outs wiring in. So yeah, that's it. That's the rundown of your 4 basic entry-level ECUs is what I'm gonna call these. I'm gonna call these the entry levels. Granted, that Link's on some stuff. I'd probably compare that Link to a 550, comparatively speaking, but it's closer to the price of a 450. So, and it's plug and play. But again, shirts are there. I'll be doing an order eventually. So, as always, comment, like, share, subscribe. Get up, get after it.